everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little while since I've been on here, but as some of you may well know, I've had quite a lot of family trauma and tragedy this year, so I haven't been up to doing any filming, but I have got back into craft recently, and I've still been meeting with my craft group, so we've still been doing a little bit here and there. So I'm finally back to show you a few things that I've been making. I've made some Christmas journals for my family, not actually Christmas journals, but journals for Christmas gifts. So I'll be showing you those coming up. And today I was working on some lovely pieces of ephemera to go in some of those journals, and I thought I'd just take you along for the ride because I was using some antique cabinet cards from TaylorMade Journals digitals in her kits, and they were just coming up so lovely. I thought I just have to share them with you because a lot of the time you get these digitals and you think, well, I love them, but what am I going to do with them? How am I going to work that into a journal? So I thought today I'd show you some really simple ways of doing that, so that you don't have to work too hard. I mean, I've seen some fabulous things done with the antique cabinet cards, and they have been made to look gorgeously original and vintage style, but I was just looking at ways of putting them into the journals on tags and pockets, and just simple little ways of using them. So I thought I'd share that with you today. So the cabinet cards that I'm using, as I said, are from TaylorMade Journals. This is just a very small selection. She has such a lot, and the kits are quite big, so you can print them out. She has some set up on pages so that you just print 4 out, and excuse my printer, it needs a head clean at the moment, so it's not perfect. But as you can see, you can get the different sizes. I think I may have shrunk this one down a little bit so that it would fit on the cards that I was using. But she has quite a range, and I was particularly interested in these dear little baby photos because they went with the journals that I was making, which were babies' first years. So they're not quite babies' journals, they're more like toddlers' journals, but they are for collecting like maybe the first 5 years of your child's life and documenting the special things that might happen in those years. So I have gathered a few that I wanted to play with, and I'll just show you what I have been working on. So I made this dear little one here, which is for a little girl's journal, and I hope that the light's okay in here because I've moved to a new craft room, and this is the first time I've filmed in this room, so I'm not really sure what the lighting is like for filming. But this little one I've added a gum leaf to because the person that I'm giving this to is a very bush orientated person, so I've added a lot of native things to her book and her story because she loves native Australian flowers and animals. So this one I put a gum leaf on, and it gives it that real Australian look too. And the little cabinet card of that cute little girl in a rocking chair, I thought it was just divine. And I haven't done a lot to this, just a little bit. I've added a few scraps of paper, as you can see there, a little bit of fabric, I've sewn around it, I've put a satin trim, and that is just on the back of a garment card. So you can use whatever tags you have. I liked that one because it was a nice size, so I've chosen that one. Then there was this dear little girl here. I've really not added much to her at all, and it just goes to show that you don't really have to sew around them if you don't want to. This one had like a little sewn line already on the picture, so I just made use of that. I just added a little fabric tab and a flower, and I backed it onto some cardstock that had writing on it, so that gave it, you know, just a little bit of something different. The back of the card can be written on because it's fairly plain, just a marbled look. So there was that one. Then I decided to decorate a paper bag. Now this, I haven't done the back of it because I just wanted to show you that it was simply a paper lunch bag, and so that you could see how I'd done that. I will go ahead and decorate the back of that, but I've left the side open here as a tuck spot, and I've just trimmed the top of this half, so you've got a pocket there, and that can wrap around your page. So you could wrap that around from, you know, the side of your journal page. And in this side I've just put the little girl in, tucked her in there as a little tuck spot in an oval frame which is embossed, and that just comes as an embossed frame to decorate with. Now the paper that I've used from this, the background, is also from TaylorMade Journals, and I think it's a summer kit, and I have done a video on using that kit. I think it was my bunny journal I used that paper for, and that was very pretty, so I used it again for this, and I thought it came up lovely. And I left this little spot here because I thought that my niece might want to put a photo of her baby there, and I just added on the side a couple of little bits of trim that she could add to it once she's put her photo on. So I pinned that just on the side so that you can imagine that once you've got a photo in there of your child, however you would like it to go, you can, you know, add that however you like to fit around your photo. So that's just a little project for her to do. So one of the babies was a boy and one was a girl. So for the little boy, I kept his fairly plain, but I am about to add a few more things to it. I just wanted to bring you in to show you what I've done so far. So even though I didn't want to make his very girly, because as he grows up and he's looking at it, he'll probably think, well, I didn't want it that, you know, fancy and fluffy. So I've kept it fairly neutral. So this one I have sewn around in zigzag and straight stitch. Just backed it onto some grey card and put a simple little paper clip on there, and left the back so that you could write on it, or that Mum can write a few words on for him to remind him of his childhood. So that's that one. This little one has a gold flake on it that's come from somewhere. This little one is just similarly sewn on, very plain, nothing fancy, with a bit of a wood grain white background, and you can also write on the back of that one. And similarly with this one, just pick some really lacy old-fashioned looking paper and back that on. On the back I just put a little bit of tape trim just to make the back a little bit fancy where you're going to do your writing. This one, much the same. I've backed onto some pretty cardstock. Has a little bit of writing that says Simple Beauty, which is quite a statement, I think. And you can write on the back of that one too. So we can add to those. I can think of a few little things that we can add to those. I've just picked out this little baby here, and all I've done is just cut around it with decal edge so that it looks a little bit vintage, and I'll just go on to show you what I do with that in a moment. And I'll show you a few of the bits I've gathered up. So I've gathered up some buttons to use because they always work well, I find, with these sort of things. I've got some paper clips, some antique vintage looking paper clips that I thought might work. You can use those. I've got some vintage laces, which are crocheted lace, a little bit of muslin or cheesecloth. Okay, so I've had a little play with some bits and pieces lined up there that I thought might work and might use. So I'll quickly just glue those down. I tend to like to make a little pile of fabrics that might work together, and they might be a little bit of everything. It just kind of frames and softens the picture, I think. Whoops, sticking to my fingers. So you might find, you know, even just little scraps like this of calico that you may have used on something else. Just pile it all together and make a little collage of fabrics, and it just gives you that little corner to sort of pin your picture down to, and adds that little bit of softness, and you can decide then whether you want to have your picture up or down or where it looks right. So I think sort of about the middle for that one. And as I said before, I deckled the edges on this because it makes it just look that little bit older. Just gluing it down there, and you can use whatever glue you like for that. I just happen to like the glitter glue because it takes fairly quickly and it doesn't need a lot of time to dry, which is good. You don't have to wait around for it. As long as you don't want to move anything again, you're fine. So you can either have your photo under or over that, however you like. And I thought that little button might look nice on there. And I've got a tiny little saying there which says gather friends and family, and I think that might be from one of Took's digitals that she has in her collection, Took's Crafts. So with the buttons you can use, I mean this glue does glue it fairly well, but you might need to use a heavier glue because they are heavy and plastic. I quite often put some threads through the button just to give it a little bit of, make it look realistically like it's sewn on there. You don't really have to do that. So that's a fairly plain but decorated little card that you could quite easily pop in somewhere. So let's have another look at what else we've got here that we might be able to work with and just add a little bit to. This one here is mother and child, and we've got quite a lot of little buttons. We could actually add something really fancy to that one and make it look really bright and cheerful. So maybe that one just needs, something simple. When you're using something as bright and bold as that, you don't really need a lot. It just depends on, what you look for that you'd like to add. See, I find that the fabric just softens it that little bit so it's not so stark. So even just that on its own to me is enough. If you wanted to get fancy, you could add a little piece of crocheted lace to the bottom, and that would work quite well if you really want to fancy it up. But it depends where you're putting it. You see, I'm putting this in a little boy's journal, so I don't want it to be too feminine. It depends on the child you're making it for, of course, how you'd like that to look, but that will give you some idea of how you can just give it a little bit of oomph without going over the top. Now, because that one is really heavy, I'd be more inclined to go and get a heavier glue to hold that on because it's metal, and I know this is really good with fabric, but I'm not really sure how it would go holding something that heavy on. So I have other glues that are designed for holding on metal, so I would be more likely to use that. So I'll just pull that down a little bit so you can still see the stitching, and that glue does dry clear, so if you can see any sticking out, you don't need to worry because it will dry clear. So that's that little one. Now we have this sweet little boy here. He's adorable, and I don't think we need to add too much to him. I like that little car, and I think you can probably see it on the white. Because it's vellum, you can see through it, so maybe we don't need to add an awful lot. Perhaps maybe a little bit of, maybe we just want a little bit of, say, some torn calico there underneath it, just to make it even. You could put it sideways and add your little car on like that. if you wanted to build it up, you could add a little bit more sticking out the top. Just don't want to cover his little head because he's so cute. But see, even that's enough. I don't think you need much more for a little boy's card. I think that's enough. You could add a little button if you wanted to. Maybe down the bottom, maybe you know, with a little bit of thread through it just to look like it's stitched on would be enough. I haven't got any thread within reach, otherwise I'd show you that, but when I show you through the book in the next videos, I will point that out to you so you can see that little bit there where I've sewn it, and you'll be able to tell. So for this little one, because it's see-through, I'm just gluing right round the very edge, but it being this type of glue, you can't, usually when it dries you can't see it, it's clear, but because it's vellum and you will see through it, you probably want to pick your glue carefully for something like that. So that's that one. I might just stop and go and find some cotton to show you how I did that in a moment, and we might have a look at see what we could do with this one here. So I went and found some thread to put that button on and make it look a little bit more like it's been sewn on. So that one looks fine now. I don't think we need any more there. This little one, I thought I'd put a little hole in the top and add a little tag, tiny tag, and I thought I might tie just a little piece of blue thread around that to make it look like it has a bow. And get that to work. It might be a bit fiddly, but we'll try. And you can just make it as large or as small as you want your bow to be. Probably don't want it too big, and just snip it off where you think it would look okay. So there we've got a cute little bow on the top of that one. This one here, I found this nice little piece of upholstery edging, and I thought it just gives it that little vintage, extra vintage look. So you might find you've got some scraps like that lying around that just will, you know, add a little bit of a vintage touch. So I thought I might add that one to there. Yeah, you do have to be careful with this because it does have a habit of fraying on the edges, so you just need to be careful when you glue it as to how you're going to glue it down. And trim your edges, and again I'm just using the same glue for that. It holds fabric very well, the art glitter glue. I'll just put plenty on there for heavier type fabrics, like this one is quite a heavy fabric, so it might take a little bit for that to hang on to it. So there we go, that's that one. And I found my glossy accents while I was looking for my button string. So that is what I would use to glue down heavier metals like this, because it's really strong. So if you haven't got anything and you're looking for something, I do recommend glossy accents for the heavier metals. It holds them really well. So that's that one. So then I think we really don't need to do much more except maybe something to this little guy. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with them quite just plain like they are. This one has got a little bit of stitching, and the machine ran out of cotton, so it just left that little pattern of holes, which I thought was quite cute and different like it was. So I didn't bother redoing it when I rethreaded the machine, because I thought it gave it just that little bit of a different look, which I quite liked. So I think for that one, what will we do for him? He doesn't really need much at all. We've still got that cute little pram there that could go maybe on a corner. I mean, that does look quite sweet, doesn't it? And again, that's for the little boys book, so I don't want to over tizzy that. You could probably try a little bit of the cheesecloth. See how that looks, but you know, you just try it. If you don't like it, you don't put it on there. You just have a bit of a play and see if you think that, you know, that might lift it. I mean, personally, I do like using that a lot, because I think it takes the edge off the harshness of, you know, what you've cut out, and just gives it that little bit of softness. It's not a lot, but it's just enough, I think. Just like that, and you don't really need to add much more at all if you don't want to. There's other things you could go to town and put. You know, I've got in my little books here lots of little odds and ends like these cute little tags that you could add on. Beautiful little, like that one says buttercups, that's rather cute. You could add something like that on the top if you wanted to, just to add a little bit of extra something to it. I just don't think you really need to overdo these sort of things. You could add a number if you're into numbers, something like that. Just keeps it sort of with that masculine flow without, you know, going too far. It just depends on how fussy you like to do your bits and pieces. There are little plain tags you could put if you liked a plainer look. You could take the buttercups off and put something like that down if you're a person who likes, you know, those sort of looks. It's a personal choice really, what you like or what you think the person you're making it for would like. Now these little books that I'm just using here, I made in my group. We made a couple. We made those from following Wendy from Wendy's Journal. She has Wendy's Journal Adventures. She has a lovely tutorial on how to make these, which was great because it gave us a wonderful place to store all our little bits and pieces and scraps, so that we don't have to really go through digging these things out or cutting them out, because we've already got them in our little book. So I thought that was really handy and a great hint from Wendy. Thanks, Wendy. We really appreciate that. So I think I might go with the buttercups because I like that, it's cute. I don't think I need the number on that one. I might save that for a different outcome later on. But I think for now I'm just going to go with this small amount on the bottom, just so it doesn't look overdone. And I'm just going to put the little pram on there. And I think that's really enough. I don't think I really want to add any more to that. I'm going to stick buttercups down. So there we go. So I think that really does look quite sweet. So they can go back into those journals, and I will be back shortly to show you those journals. I have them sitting there waiting to be filmed as soon as I complete these. Actually, I found that little flower fabric cut out, and I just thought that went really well on the corner of that little girl, so I might add her while I'm here. So that's just a piece of fabric cut from Liberty Print, which have those lovely floral print fabrics, really pretty. So I just thought that looked nice, sort of draped, draped over the edge there, into the corner sort of. Whoops, working on a funny angle here. It's a little bit hard to reach across and get things in the right spot. There, I just think that gave it a little something extra. I'll just give you a sneak peek so you know what's coming up. So this is Cupcake. So I'll be back in a moment to show you Cupcake. Thank you for watching, everyone. See you soon. Bye for now.